Hi, my name is Maximilian Riedel. I'm the 11th generation of the Riedel family. My family has been producing glassware since the early 18th century. It was my grandfather, Klaus Josef Riedel, who was the 9th generation, the first man to develop wine-friendly stemware. My father, George Riedel, was the one who took the idea and turned it into grape varietal specific, which means for every grape variety, we have its own glass. We refer to the glasses as messengers, as loudspeakers for wine and spirit. But don't take it from me, take it from the professionals.
The process of winemaking starts in the vineyard during the winter time. The vineyard managers and his team is pruning the vineyard and the vines.
It buds out in March of every year to be harvested in September, October.
At harvest time, the winemakers will bring the grapes to the cellar team to press them directly, or you crush them into tanks.
The grapes wine will go through fermentation, barrel age process, and then a final blend going into the bottle.
And then that's it, it's ready to be drank.
We spend a lot of time and energy nurturing the product to bring it to the consumer. I insist that our family of wines is presented in a Riedel glass because it makes that much difference.
The glass is your conveyor, it's your tool, it's the extension of the wine. Before the Riedel glass came along, I don't think that wine had completely been unlocked for people.
The architecture of the glass is so important. You have the bowl where the wine will be poured, or can open very quickly or shortly, so it's quite a complex world. The stem must be nicely balanced. It cannot be too thick or too thin because you break it, or it's too big and you don't move your wine very quickly. So it's all a matter of balance. That is the art of making glasses, and I think Riedel has absolutely perfected the art of glassware.
You never want a wine that's going to be closed. As you're drinking it, you're not going to have the full enjoyment of the wine. So it's incredibly important to decant wines that need it. Riedel decanters can definitely open that up.
My family is one of the largest organic grape growers in Napa Valley. Most of my time is spent on what are the toxins in our environment. Believe me, leaded glass does not come onto the radar as far as a concern of mine.
So often we have a great dinner party and we walk into the kitchen and we see all of the glassware that you have to wash by hand. When owning Riedel stemware and a Miele dishwasher, you're giving your Riedel crystal perfect glass care technology, and you will truly get to experience the essence of a Riedel glass.
This is a company/family that is singularly committed to what they do. They are always able to execute on their commitment to the consumer, and they're the best at what they do.
For more information about Riedel, simply visit our website, riedel.com. I would like to raise a glass, and as my grandfather used to say, people who drink wine from Riedel glasses drink the better wine. Cheers.
Good morning and welcome to the 2024 Wine Business Monthly Tasting Room Survey Results webinar. My name is Erin Kirschenmann. I'm the managing editor of Wine Business Monthly.
My name is Andrew Adams. I'm the editor of the Wine Analytics Report, which is part of the Wine Business Company.
And we are so excited to have you here today. We are being joined by hundreds of participants from across the country, all different price points, tasting room models, and case productions. So it's really kind of a well-rounded look at the industry. So thank you for joining us, and again, thank you for bearing with us. Now, this is the second time we've done our tasting room webinar, and since we did this last year, quite a few things have changed. We've seen some doom and gloom in the headlines. We've definitely heard that tasting room visitation is down, but there's also been some bright spots, and we're really excited to say that our tasting room survey reflects some of those bright spots. Now, before we dive into the data, I just want to say a few words, get some housekeeping done under the way. We are bringing in some quality experts, Lindsey from Domaine Serene, Colin from Passalacqua, and Janie from Brooks Winery. They are all seeing a lot of the same trends that you are, And they've also come up with some rather unique solutions. We hope that this webinar will help you in your benchmarking efforts, as well as give you some inspiration for some potential solutions for what's happening in your tasting room. Now, we'd love for you to also be part of it. We've set up a text line. If you have a question for either Andrew or myself, or for one of our experts, please feel free to text 707-302-0660, and we'll try to either answer them in real time or at the very end in a Q&A session. If we don't make it to the Q&A because we've run out of time, don't worry. We'll get all of your questions answered by our panelists and send it out in a follow-up email. Last but not least, before we dive in, I'd like to thank the incredible team at Wine Business Analytics for putting together this survey, collecting the answers, and analyzing the data. To our speakers for joining us, to you for being here, and of course, to our sponsor, Riedel. Stay tuned because at the end of the hour, they do have a special discount with more instructions for you. All right, with that, Andrew, could you tell us a little bit more about this survey?
My pleasure. And as you mentioned, Wine Business Analytics is the data team of the Wine Business Company, which of course publishes Wine Business Monthly, daily news on winebusiness.com, our signature events, and the data group. And the data group also maintains our Wine Business Analytics winery database, which remains the most accurate and comprehensive database of wineries in North America, with of course a focus on the United States. With that data, we're able to reach out to wineries across the United States for comprehensive coverage. There are currently more than 11,600 wineries. We are collecting a representative sample of all of those, and with that data, we can segment by key regions. Those are Napa and Sonoma County, the Central Coast, the Pacific Northwest, which includes Oregon and Washington, the rest of California too, of course, and then of course the rest of the United States. We're also able to segment by size. That's an annual production, with the largest wineries making more than 500,000 cases a year, and the smallest making less than 1,000 cases. Now that data is further complemented by additional aggregated anonymized data courtesy of Community Benchmark, and to give us as full of a picture of the DTC and tasting room business as possible. And we also have questions that are pertinent and timely for pressing issues of the year. So that is an overview of the survey, and then let's get right into the data.
Of course. All right, so let's look at the big picture. Annual percent change in direct consumer sales in 2023. We're seeing a little bit of a mixed bag, some decreases in the main regions of California, Napa, Sonoma, Central Coast, of course, but some good volume increases across the rest of the U.S., and I mean, even some great change in value in the rest of the U.S., anything east of the Rockies. What's important to note here is that while this may look a little dismal, these are still single-digit decreases, right? We haven't gone over 10%. We're seeing, you know, some normal fluctuations, right? We've had some great years through COVID. A lot of people came out to the tasting room. A lot of people purchased through the winery in order to help support their local businesses. But this could have been a lot worse.
It could have, and you know, it's interesting to me what we're seeing in terms of just DTC sales is reflective across the entire U.S. wine industry, with value in terms of dollars, you know, and then volume, that's 9-liter cases, of course. Value down a bit, you know, anywhere from 5% to 8%, with volume, excuse me, no, I had that backwards. Volume down about 5%, with value flat. So that's why it really jumps out to me that the rest of California, a significant increase in both volume and a healthy increase in value, and the rest of the United States as well. When you consider the rest of California, they possibly may have benefited from, you know, the cost increases that led to price increases and the elevated experiences that cost more in Napa and Sonoma. And then the rest of the U.S. is very encouraging, because when we look at the winery counts in our database, we see strong growth in places like Michigan and Virginia. And then when you also consider the continuing success of the Texas industry, there's really good things happening across what has become a national wine business. And you can see that here in terms of where growth has been in the past year. And again, in more of the more established regions, if you will, we're continuing to see the ongoing effect of, you know, what's been widely described as normalization, compared back to those those very disrupted years that Erin mentioned already.
All right, well, let's get the elephant out of the room, or address the elephant in the room, excuse me. Tasting room visitation. Here we're showing the difference between 2022 and 2023, and as you can see, in just about every region, except for the Pacific Northwest, we are seeing decreases. None of this is surprising to any of you, I'm absolutely sure. Again, could have been a lot worse. We're still seeing decent decreases.
For sure, and we're joining you live from Sonoma County, which did enjoy near a 6% increase in tasting room visitors. Now, this is median, not average, because the average can be skewed dramatically in some cases, but this is the median number of visitors. And so really, in terms of what we did in 21 and 22, it's great to see that the declines haven't been so precipitous. And that really, again, it's normalization, and we're getting to more of a baseline and this year. And also a major trend that we had seen was fewer visitors perhaps staying for longer in a more elaborate or multi-part tasting that also would frequently feature food. So, and then wider the economy, price increases, inflation have dampened consumer demand to some degree, and as opposed to in 2021 when we saw a huge increase in visitation, they now have free access to the full variety of tourism experiences too. So as Erin mentioned, this, based on what we were hearing early on in 2023 and even in this year, it could be significantly down, but essentially holding the line with the previous year.
Right, given all these headwinds that you've just mentioned, the fact that we're only at, a 8.8% decrease in Napa or a 9.8% decrease in the rest of the U.S., that's pretty good considering inflation and all of these other factors. But given the fact that we are seeing fewer visitors, whether that's because of a lengthened experience or just a general drop, it's more important than ever to convert those visitors to either a sale, your wine club, or your mailing list. And so we want to take a look at the 2023 conversion rates. Now, these are down just about across the board in all categories, even on the mailing list, which was a little bit surprising. We are seeing some sales in the tasting room up a little bit in certain areas, but that club and email is again down. What we're seeing, especially with the wine club, is I think that there are a lot of consumers out there who are looking for more flexibility in their spending. As consumer dollars aren't going as far as the prices of all goods start to increase, I think finding a subscription that has an undecided amount and it comes at set times of the year is a little frightening to the consumer. And we're seeing that in our data. They're looking for more. They'd rather come into the tasting room, purchase however many bottles feels comfortable to them at that time frame, and then maybe join the wine club later.
Flexibility, customization is huge right now. We hear that a lot, and particularly among the most desirable consumers, the younger generations. They want that ability to pick and choose even the wines they want to buy rather than be set in a rigid club, definitely from the onset. So so definitely what the demand has changed a little bit.
Absolutely. Now, to talk about some of these conversions, we'd like to bring in Lindsey Jessup. She has said that she's seen not such a dramatic decrease in tasting room visitation. She is having some issues with the wine club attrition, but your tasting room sales are way up. Lindsey, could you speak to that for us?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for having me on today. It's great to be here and speak to everyone. What we're seeing in terms of visitation is that people are really ready to explore wine country again. And we're seeing a lot of this word of mouth recommendation as well as kind of organic traffic coming in. But it's how you interact with guests when they come in. We're also seeing a lot of member traffic coming in as well. So what we've done to really is in the past we've been reservation only. So we've put kind of limitations on how many people can come in at what set time. But what we've done is really kind of opened our gates and embraced this culture of kind of hospitality, yes, really building experiences to say yes to all of these kind of consumers. What that's done is really shown us that we can increase that conversion to sale and create that emotional connection with those consumers coming in that would actually convert them into club. So that's really what we're seeing on that side of things.
These consumers into your tasting room, you're saying that sales are up. And I mean, Domaine Serene has a $90 per bottle price point at the lowest end. That seems a little high for a lot of consumers, especially those of the younger generation. How are you making such a dramatic increase in sales?
Yeah, definitely. I think this kind of comes into twofold here. So what we're doing, again, embracing that hospitality culture of yes, and creating and opening up different kind of on-brand experiences to appeal to that different wine consumer, right? So we do have those standard, what Domaine Serene is known for, those sit-down educational offerings, deep dive, really exploring kind of the quality and breadth of our portfolio. We've also offered kind of more leisure offerings, more food and wine, more experiential, by the glass and by the bottle offerings where people can just come, enjoy, and have a glass of wine, have a bottle of wine, have that food pairing they'd like, and really get to know our brand in the way that they enjoy wine country, right? So it's kind of about, let's call it reading the room with the consumers coming in and developing, again, with your own brand ethos in mind, developing that broad range of experiences to suit the need of the consumer coming in the door. When we do that, right, when we meet the customer where they are in their wine journey, they're choosing to come through our door. So when we can offer them an experience that suits their lifestyle, you have a better chance to engage with them, create that connection with them, and convert them to sales or membership. What we're also seeing in that way is members engaging with us differently. That's also having them come back to the winery more often and also create those incremental bottle sales.
I love this idea of a culture of yes, meeting your consumer where they are, and then just embracing it, rolling with the punches, so to speak.
Of course, but do it in your winery's way, right? Do it in the way that suits your brand ethos, your why as a winery, and your customer, right? You know your customer the best, and they're choosing to know you in a better way.
Excellent. So thank you, Lindsey, for joining us. We are going to bring you back a little bit later on in the broadcast. But while we're talking about sales within the tasting room and wine club conversion, we have to, of course, look at median order values. Now, in 2023, we are seeing a lot of green. This is good. Green boxes mean they are up from last year. We are only seeing a few decreases in kind of pockets around. There's no set trend here. But whether that's tasting room or visitor center, wine club, on-site or off-site events, telesales or winery website, that average order value is increasing. And I think that speaks to the level of hospitality that wineries are now offering, right? They're doing more sit down with the consumer, asking them about themselves, wanting to learn a little bit more, really trying to engage with the consumer.
For sure, you know, and it's doing more also with less. You might have fewer visitors in the tasting room, but you need to have people who can make a sale. And as Lindsey was saying, be reactive to what that different type of consumer wants, and find, you know, opportunities in any type of visitor or experience you might be offering. And it's great also to see the winery website across the board increases there compared to last year. And again, these are median values. We've actually seen even more dramatic increases on the average too. And it's a reminder too for those who participate in the study. One of the ways we thank them for their time is providing a report, a data report with way more data and insights than we can get through here, even with our webinar. But yeah, very encouraging to see, even though visitation is down, average orders almost across the board up versus last year. And of course, this would reflect to some degree price increases, but you know, It is generally positive in what has been, widely kind of, maybe not entirely accurately though, derided as another challenging year for the wine business.
I want to touch on something you said about the winery website increases. We saw such a move toward better e-commerce through COVID, and that is continuing, right? We are seeing all of that investment into the website, into SEO, start to pay off. And what I love about the winery website is that it means that whether it's a brand new guest or consumer or somebody who's been to your winery before, they are continuing to make that purchase even if they are not on site. So all of the work that we're doing in the tasting room continues on afterward, whether that's through our email marketing, good SEO, or some advertising as well. Now, let's go to another elephant in the room, the wine club acquisition and attrition rates of 2023. Yet again, we're seeing some of the economic headwinds playing a part in making it a little bit more difficult for wineries to bring in revenue. Across the board, acquisition rates are a bit down. Attrition rates are up a bit dramatically from last year. In Napa, attrition is up from 16% last year. In Sonoma, it was actually down from 24% last year, so that's some good news. Attrition in the Central Coast is up from 15% last year. The rest of California down from 14%. Pacific Northwest remained mostly flat on their attrition rate, and then some absolutely fantastic news. The rest of the United States, anything east of the Rockies, attrition is down from 26%. So we are seeing some great growth pretty much everywhere except California, it seems, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's a challenge. I mean, one of the other insights from this year was we asked specific to the fourth quarter, did you see an increase in attrition or wine club holds? And resoundingly, the answer was yes. I think it was more than 70% of all wineries surveyed. That is concerning. It does, however, track with one of the other major themes we've seen in our work looking at the total U.S. wine market, in that there was this phenomenon, very strong one in terms of inventory stocking you saw in wholesale, retailers. That has then led to what seems like a very dramatic decline in the total market, but is really just a rebalancing of inventories. And it's funny enough, we're seeing it in consumers as well. And it is particularly of note or interest and importance for the wine industries because DTC customers remain the most loyal and important to the wine industry. They bought a hell of a lot of wine in the pandemic, as we saw in our DTC shipment data and also in previous surveys. And so now a lot of those, wine fridges are full, and they might be pausing their memberships for a little bit concerned about the wider economy and also price increases. So I think we're seeing that in play here. And so again, it goes back to how flexible are you in your club model to hold people when they do feel more confident about wine and maintaining that relationship. It's crucial, and it's going to be, and it is already very important this year and will continue to be so through the rest of the year and into 2025 as well.
That is the perfect segue for us to bring back Lindsey to talk about how you keep your wine club members engaged. So Lindsey, I would love to just ask you, how do you engage with your club members to keep them in? What are some of the reasons you see them leaving, and how do you stop that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, as we're all familiar, attrition is going up, and the typical reasons are, financial, I have too much wine, I'd like the flexibility. I mean, I think we're all seeing similar reasons. But what I really want to focus on in terms of that retention is looking at how we engage those members outside of just a wine club shipment, right? The wine club shipment is the thing that sits inside the membership. So are we communicating to our members the benefits and the experiences within that membership that they get along with this wonderful wine? So, right, it's about talking to them in between the shipments, right? Asking them how they are, offering them, the special offers of wine you have, opening up your library, new experiences that you have going on. Are we communicating and continuing that conversation outside of our transactional shipments? We also look at, access to wines by tier. That's for us, our members love the single vineyard XYZ. So they want to maintain that membership for access as well as their benefits. But as we were speaking about before, it's really being agile and willing to be flexible and customize those shipments or even downshift a little bit. Really giving members the options within your club tiers to make movements as well. And when they come in to cancel or when they come in to ask questions, arming your team with the knowledge and the tools to be able to say yes to those members. A lot of the members do want to buy wine. So are we, as wine leaders, empowering our teams to say yes to the sale, right? Things like that. Also really looking at member engagement in terms of creating, micro events, micro experiences, and any meaningful member touch points, right? About a membership, you think about membership as an amenity. You think about membership as this, they have already bought into your brand, right? They've already created an emotional connection with you. So how are you continuing that in a way that the member feels valuable, right? And so it's how that really works in, again, to the personality and ethos of your winery and your brand. For us, maybe it's going out into market where our members live, right? Maybe it's creating micro events on site for different club tiers. Maybe creating member exclusive experiences on site that we say, hey, during this set time, come and experience this new member exclusive XYZ, right? So in my opinion, it's really about how we're engaging and continuing the conversation outside of just the shipments.
I really love what you said about asking them where they are. And we can come up with all of these great experiences or new tasting flights, but how do you find out what really works with your club members?
Yeah, I'm going to do a throwback back to basics here. Us as wineries, we have a solid group of experts within our ecosystem, and those are the wine club members. So going back to basics, go and survey those wine club members. Ask them what they love about your membership program. Ask them, what they love about your wines, what they love about coming on site, what they love about the benefits, and then ask them what else they'd like to see. Not that we're going to promise them that we're going to do all of this, but our members are a great source of information gathering. They're a great source of, how do we expand our offerings or shift our offerings? But they're also a great referral source for new people to come and experience. If they're having a great time with you, they're going to be sharing it with their friends and family. Wine is communal. Wine is emotional. We love to share it. It brings people together. So if we're giving them a good experience, we're asking them what they want, they're probably going to have really good insights about kind of the direction that we need to shift.
Absolutely. Okay, so last real quick question that came in from the audience while I still have you here, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later as well. But Lindsey, what are you doing, given the rise of RTDs, to attract some of the younger consumers, millennials, Gen Z, for example?
I think what in all of my kind of experience, within wine country, on the road, and reading different case studies, it's about developing these leisure experiences. Gen Z and millennials, they are going to spend money. We do know that they are spending money on wine, but are we creating the right experiences for them? Kind of in the research that we're seeing is that they're not opting into these 2-hour deep dive educational seminars. They're opting into these leisurely experiences that are really enriching their lifestyle, right? So is it a cabana? Is it by the glass? Is it, picnic offerings? It's really experiential what they're seeking. So for me at our brand level, it might be a cabana experience or a picnic or an overlook, really to get the Instagrammable moment going, but in a luxury way. For others, it might be, wine cocktails, this, that, or the other. It really, in the experience building, is up to your brand's ethos and kind of where you fall in that and the type of experience you want to deliver to that younger consumer.
Perfect. Thank you, Lindsey, for joining us. I'd like to bring in our next guest, Colin MacPhail of Passalacqua Winery. he has seen a lot of the same issues that you have. And Colin, given the fact that there are so many wine clubs out there, there are so many wineries out there, you know, we're more than 12,000 at this point. How do you make your wine club and your wine stand out with those consumers?
You know, if we're reaching a constriction in the marketplace, which I think we are, the first to go are going to be the mediocre. So if you're mediocre in any industry, if you're mediocre, you're a restaurant, you're a retailer, if you're mediocre, you're the most under threat. So how can you make yourself not mediocre? And I think the answer to that for any of us out there is, and Lindsey referred to this earlier, is to find out what your why is. Why do you make the wines? I think that the younger people we have that come in, maybe they're interested in experiences. We don't really do experiences per se. I think they're interested in why do you do what you do and why should it matter to me? They're looking for a tribe to join. So you've got to find a way to make your ideals and your reason why you actually make wine resonate with them. And that's what we focus on.
Now, given that you may have a fantastic why and you're great at communicating it, but you know, consumers just aren't joining as many wine clubs as they used to. Can you give a little bit of reason why you think that is?
Yeah, I think joining a wine club is a cultural norm. It's something that originated about 25 years ago, 30 years ago when I first got into the wine business. You know, you went to the wine country, you joined a wine club. It was what you did. And you told your friends you'd join a wine club. There was a certain kudos in that. It meant that you'd achieved a certain level of sophistication in your life. It said something about you. You know, you look at all the reports, everything east of the Rockies is going gangbusters, and we're not. So we're a maturing marketplace. We're a maturing business model. And perhaps the idea of, I mean, it's a nightmare scenario for all small wineries, but perhaps the idea of being in a wine club just doesn't matter so much to people anymore, especially as we've already talked about, maybe younger people. So I think we got to be prepared for that. We're still going to do what we do, but we've got to be prepared for the fact that you know, there may be an evolution in the marketplace when it comes to wine clubs.
Thank you, Colin. That was really great. Appreciate your time, and we're looking forward to keeping the conversation going later in the webinar. But we're just going to move on to a next batch of data from the survey, and here is a look at basic versus elevated tasting experiences, the price of those. As you can see, you know, pretty straightforward 2-to-1 relationship here. Basic at about $20 to $25, with elevated about twice that, around the $50 mark, if not more. Of course, Napa in different territory, but you can see here, you know, there is definitely a cost structure based on what people are expecting, but on the winery side, you definitely need to understand, you know, how this relates to your costs, and you know, whether that elevated experience might be able to cover a more casual walk-up experience that might be in more demand this year, and also might be in more demand from some of those younger, less experienced consumers that we are very much looking to kind of bring into the fold and bring into the industry. So,
can I state the obvious here?
Please do.
I mean, I understand the tasting room fee needing to cover costs. That's not a surprise here. But have we gone maybe just a little too far? I know that's pretty controversial to say, but in an era when we are seeing some wine club attrition, in an era where the consumer is feeling gouged because of inflation, because the prices for their basic market grocery goods is just skyrocketing, they're feeling some dissatisfaction in the job market. I mean, the latest consumer confidence index is reporting all of these things. Is the cost of our tasting experience a barrier? Is it preventing them from either coming in the door, or once they're in the door, purchasing anything? You know, it's an interesting thought.
And I think it's one that definitely is, I would agree, is on the minds of a lot of consumers. You know, you mentioned doom and gloom headlines. We've seen it specific to the tasting room cost structure. And then if you look at the comments in those articles, it still continues to kind of baffle me that people have this expectation that they can walk into a company and just have that company pour its products and give it away for free. But, you know, there is a legacy of that generous hospitality in the industry. And I think that expectation, you can work with that by restructuring what you can offer people. And again, you know, it's great under the culture of yes, because that is what the wine industry really needs. We need more yes. Come on in, we're welcoming, we're hospitable, and you're gonna have a great time, and we're gonna price it in a way that's approachable for you.
Well, to kind of continue this thought, we'd love to bring back Colin. Colin, you have come up with a rather renegade way of doing your fees. Can you walk us through that?
Well, essentially, we don't have tasting fees. But it's not a free tasting. So that's very important to distinguish between we don't have tasting fees and it's a free tasting. It's not a free tasting. We're choosing to not charge 90% of the people who come here a tasting fee before they get here. However, in doing so, the reason we're doing that is because we want to set up an expectation of what this relationship is about. Just because of our particular business model, we're not in the business of doing back rubs and foot rubs and pickleball and whatever else people are doing. We want people to come here in order to try wine, to decide which wine they like the most, in order to then purchase that wine. What I've found over the years is the tasting fee gets in the way of that. It makes the relationship transactional. And when the relationship is transactional, you don't get any time. The person walks through the door and starts measuring what is their experience, how does it measure up to the previous experience, is it worth the extra $10 or is it $10 less? By taking away the tasting fee, if we can communicate early that we choose not to apply a tasting fee, we can then start to guide to the customer to why it is that we exist and why they're coming here. And in some ways, it also can create a certain social obligation, which is if I've given you something for nothing, well, then it's perhaps on you to then look for ways to see if there's a way that you can repay that social obligation. And I don't think that's cynical. I think that's human nature. So it allows us to be generous. It allows us to meet as equals rather than as servants. And also, I think the most important thing at the end of it all is I trust my guys to get that sale. I trust that they are going to communicate. They're going to ask questions early on. They're going to find out why the person is here. They're going to work towards making sure that person leaves something that's appropriate for them. I trust them to do that. I don't need the safety net of a tasting fee to make sure we get something from the customer. So we have 100% sale rate. It's incredibly rare that someone would come here and not buy wine. And if I have a choice between a $35, $55 tasting fee in the cash register or a person having one bottle of wine at an intimate dinner 6 months from now with some friends, I would much, much, much rather have that bottle go out the door than have that tasting fee.
Exactly. That bottle is going to be shared with friends, as you said, right? Or family members, and maybe that will prompt them to come back and visit your tasting room at a later date. It's not for everybody,
actually it's more complicated and more difficult to do it the way we do it. It's a lot easier just to do tasting fees because it's just knee-jerk. Everybody understands the relationship. But if you're willing to work at it and start the relationship early and follow through on what I find is the customers who like wine find it flattering that you're not charging them a tasting fee because the implicit relationship is we're vulnerable. We are opening ourselves up to the possibility that this might not work, but we believe that you are here because you're interested in wine and will fulfill the relationship. So that vulnerability, if you're willing to make it, can make the relationship work.
Great. We have a ton of questions coming in for you, unsurprisingly, and many of them are referring to the age of your average consumers, right? You mentioned earlier that people want to be part of a tribe. Well, what is that tribe of wine club members now? Is that just the older generation? And then, what is the average age of people who are coming into your tasting room in general?
I think inevitably they skew a bit older. We're not chasing after, the young hip crowd. We have quite a lot of younger visitors. There's a wonderful young lady from San Francisco. Her last name is Cairo. I always remember her when she comes in because of that last name. But I called her my precious. I said, why do you call me my precious? I said, because you're under 30, and you come to a winery and you buy wine. You're like a dream come true, and you bring your friends. So we do have them. I think, as I said earlier, they're not necessarily, you don't have to be sustainable, you don't have to be green, you don't have to be all the kind of common sort of things that were expected. They just want to know, do you have a reason to exist? And are you human? And do you treat me like a human? I think as long as they feel you're offering something that's real and authentic, that can be almost more important than quote unquote experiences and hanging out, doing whatever people do when they hang out at wineries, playing games and whatever.
Thank you, Colin. That was really well put, and a really great breakdown in terms of providing that authentic relationship that has definite value. And so there may not be a fee there, but you are definitely offering something to your visitors that they will then provide, reciprocal exchange in terms of buying the wine, really creating something there without a fee. That's really impressive. Thanks again for your time and for joining us today.
Pleasure.
We're going to get into a little bit more about what people are saying.
These are just some snippets of things that we heard in our survey. We asked an open-ended question. What are you doing to attract younger consumers to your tasting room? And overwhelmingly, there were two main responses that are not included on here. We are posting on social media and engaging with them that way, which none of that is a surprise. We've spoken about Instagram and TikTok and Twitter ad nauseum in the industry. And then the other was education, which is interesting given what we've heard from Lindsey earlier, that consumers just want to come in and have wine be part of their lifestyle. They don't necessarily want to sit down for a 2-3 hour long education session. Our colleague Sarah Brown recently wrote a fantastic article, Millennials Want a Wine Vacation, Not a Wine Education, based on some Wine Market Council data. And that's overwhelmingly what we're seeing, is that they want to just go and have fun, be part of the culture of wine. And so it's really exciting to see some of these responses where they say things like, we don't take wine too seriously and provide a great place to hang out. We want to make them feel welcome and respected. Trying to have part of the staff be of the younger demographic is a huge one that I think is often overlooked. And then, of course, we see mocktails, Instagrammable locations. And here we would normally bring in one of our speakers, Janie Brooks, but unfortunately due to some technical issues was not able to join us. But I really want to call her and Brooks Winery out because they are doing something incredibly innovative and offering a non-alcoholic flight in addition to their regular wine flights. These change up seasonally. They are partnering with other local purveyors. They are putting, beautiful garnishes on there and providing a really nice experience for somebody who is not drinking for whatever reason, whether that's they're the designated driver, they're expecting, or just this is their fourth winery that day and say, I'm kind of not feeling the wine anymore. And what that's doing, as she said, I just want them in my tasting room. I want them engaging with my brand. I want them to feel welcome. And if that means that I'm serving them, something without alcohol or without my wine, I'm absolutely going to provide it to them.
I would just add on that, sorry to interrupt, Erin, but meeting the consumer where they're at and what they want, both in terms of the type of experience you're offering, the level of education that they want. Just to go back quickly on the point in terms of perceptions of Wine Club, what younger consumers want, how they view wine differently. That was actually a study commissioned by Full Glass Marketing. As Erin mentioned, our colleague Sarah Brown wrote that up. It's a really interesting look, and also in terms of how they perceive Wine Club and subscription models. So, and to go back to that point in terms of trying to have staff of the younger demographic, and also it's not just younger, but of all ethnicities as well. That's huge. But in terms of another interesting takeaway from our survey this year, we looked at recruiting in the tasting room. And as we've done in previous years, we also look at compensation. You can see here, average hourly wage is up pretty much across the board. except in Napa where sign-up bonuses per club member went up significantly. You know, and the bonus is a huge part of the tasting room operation. That's a major takeaway from the salary survey, which we will be working on this year as well. You know, that structure in terms of not just attracting, but retaining your best tasting room employees is huge, and even more so. You know, it's going to be much more competitive out there in terms of consumer engagement, and it's going to be increasingly, if not already much so, competitive in retaining people who can do that and really are vital for your winery in terms of being that frontline person on the hospitality, but receiving, understanding what consumers are looking for, and then making the sale, or if not making the sale in the tasting room, capturing the email, collecting that personal information, making sure they have a good time so that when you reach out to them via email, phone call, text, whatever, they'll remember that tasting room person who provided such a nice experience for them, maybe if they even weren't buying wine. So really important in terms of how you both incentivize and compensate your tasting room employees.
And I have to say, finding an employee who really loves being in the tasting room is a bit of a challenge. To go back to your point, you know, when a consumer remembers a specific tasting room employee, they eat that up, but it does kind of come far and few between. We're hearing a lot of this as we go through our discussions with our HR managers for the winejobs.com summit. And the problem we're seeing is that there is so much competition in hospitality with restaurants, with other types of companies, because they are able to offer a higher compensation. At the end of the day, the dollar is what pays your rent. And so as much as somebody may love working in the tasting room, if they cannot meet their basic needs for income, they are likely to go somewhere else. So one of the things that we've heard from that group of people, the HR managers, are two things, excuse me. The first is a tip line. For some reason, there are a lot of wineries who have sort of eschewed the tip line, thinking it feels kind of gross or just asking for more information or for more money from your consumer. But the consumer in general seems to love the tip line. We see that as just part of American culture. We are a tipping culture. We know that our dollars are going straight to that employee who has given us such a wonderful bit of service, who has made us feel welcome and special. And so if you don't already have a tip line on your receipts, I would really encourage you to do so. And then I was speaking with Janie ahead of this webinar, and she said that training is one area we haven't done a lot of investment in. You know, we rely on our employees to be that front line to make the conversion to either mailing list, sale, or club, but we don't necessarily give them the tools for it. She's undergoing a big investment right now to offer training through the WISE Academy to all of her staff, just to make sure that their sales skills and, more importantly, their hospitality skills are up to par. And she said it's going to be absolutely worth it. She's already started to see major changes in the tasting room that are making them happier as well. So speaking of mocktails, I'd love to bring in Janie from Brooks Winery, because she has a rather inventive way of bringing in the younger generation through a non-alcoholic tasting flight. Janie, could you please walk us through what you're doing in your tasting room?
So part of our approach in our tasting room overall is to have the broadest offerings to make sure we can accommodate all of our guests and everybody in the parties. Often people are coming in groups to our tasting room, and we started offering a non-alcoholic flight for the person who doesn't want to drink for whatever reason, as we know that's becoming more and more of a trend, and we're seeing more and more interesting non-alcoholic drinks on nice restaurant menus. And so we did a lot of research, and we found Curious Elixirs, which has been on the top of the New York Times list for years for their quality of non-alcoholic beverages. We serve them in a flight, so you still receive a flight, just like you would a flight of wine. And then we go to the extra effort of putting garnishes on them and making them so that the guest feels like this is something intentional and well thought out, and they have as much joy as the person just drinking a flight of wine.
Now, does this actually bring in any revenue? What's the value of offering this kind of a flight?
The value of offering this is really to enhance the guest experience and to not be the winery that somebody doesn't come to because maybe somebody doesn't drink wine. There is not a significant cost to it at all. It is really a rounding error when it comes also to the revenue that it produces. And while it's not chosen, obviously, as often as something like a flight of wine, it just provides that extra yes and inclusivity for a guest at the table that may not want to drink wine.
So Janie, given the importance of your tasting room employees as your front line towards sales, what are you doing to help attract and retain some of those essential employees?
We have a lot of educational programs for our team at Brooks. We do 2 educational sessions a month, one on the flights and one on another topic like biodynamic farming or hospitality skills. But one of the steps that I'm taking this year, because I think we need to continue to make investments in our team, is we're bringing in the WISE crew at the beginning of June to do an all-day training with our team. Our team does an amazing job, but there are specific sales skills that will help in the wine industry and for our team to really produce better results this summer, give them more confidence, make sure everybody kind of is operating on the same page with the same information and approach. One of the things that WISE is having our team do, which I think is a fabulous idea, is they're actually going to go evaluate other experiences in the area with the same eye and lens that they will be trained on for our tasting room.
Now, I believe you've also added a tip line, and that has been really helpful in keeping some of your employees from moving to a restaurant or some other business. Is that right?
Yes, so we added a tip line when we moved to tableside service. So we try to have a very casual and nice atmosphere. We always have basically waited tables like you would in a restaurant for wine tasting. And we've had that tip line forever. And that tip line produces about $6 to $10 an hour in addition for our team. We've never had pushback from our guests. They always love to tip our team because they do provide such an excellent experience and are so attentive. And it's allowed us then to spend our money, the company's money, because tip money just passes through to the team on things like our this education experience that we're going to do, or other benefits, whether they be health benefits or 401k or whatever else we want to direct our dollars to further support our team.
Right, and we're a culture of tipping. Americans are known for being big tippers. It doesn't seem like there would be any pushback from your consumers for having this tip line. It may even prompt them because they never thought to tip at a winery before.
It has not prompted any pushback from our consumers. We are very focused on ensuring that the guest experience, when someone is coming to spend their time and their money and they've picked us, as wonderful as possible. And that's how our guests feel when they leave. And nobody has ever, thought that our team shouldn't be tipped. They welcome it. They know that they're helping to take care of our team as well. And that's the culture and the community that we really strive for at Brooks.
Wonderful. Thank you, Janie, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
We are still taking questions from the audience. There are so many. Thank you, everybody, for coming through and asking all of these great questions. Many of them are highly specific, so what we're going to do is send them to our panelists, to Lindsey and to Colin, and we'll give you their responses in an email at the end. Unfortunately, wow, that was a really quick hour, 45 minutes, so that just flew by. Thank you for joining us through all of this. Now, I did at the very beginning promise that our sponsor had a special discount for you. Riedel is offering 20% off of one order plus a free key to wine tasting set. For a discount code and more instructions, please check your email. They will be sending you more information and more instructions after this webinar is over. And I want to just say thank you to Riedel for doing that and for sponsoring this webinar. Without them, we wouldn't be able to be here with you today. And of course, last but not least, thank you for joining us. We will have more results published in the July 2024 issue of WineBusiness Monthly. All of the participants who answered our survey questions will receive a full data report with everything we have, and you should receive that within the coming week. Also in the coming week, we are going to post this broadcast online so that if you wanted to go back and look at some more of these slides, go back and revisit some of the things that Lindsey or Colin said, you can absolutely do so. So thank you again for joining us. Thank you to the Wine Business Analytics team for putting all of this together. And I hope to see you next year.
Thank you very much, everyone. Really appreciate your time joining us for the conversation today. Thank you.